Okay then. Well, I have with me Zoe Swain, and I know that you want to do something with your
I'd love
Facebook.
to. Yeah, I'd love
I'm
to.
going to show you these books because we're going to be giving these away tonight. And yeah, so can I swear on camera? Like, yeah, it's the name, it's the title of the book. And I hope I don't offend anyone, but it is Unfuck Yourself. So, or it should be Unbeat Yourself.
Unbeat yourself.
Yeah, so Unbeat Yourself, we'll talk about that. And we've also got a journal to give away. So thanks, Zoe, for doing that. So, we'll just leave those there for now. So, let's get right back to the beginning and your life and where you come from. Because we were saying, like, I think we titled the show Transforming Your Life, because you have totally transformed your life from being a country cowgirl and just, wow, that you were, now from my memory, you were living on 600 square mile property up near the Gulf of Carpentaria.
Yeah, I was born a long way west of Townsville, so about 6 hours west of Townsville, in a small country area named Richmond, or Maxwellton was our closest town. Probably had like 100 people in it, really.
Big town.
I think they were just mainly on the neighbouring properties, but so born in that area. Mum and Dad were cattle graziers, and we always had horses and always competed, and then when I was 7, we sold up out there and moved up into the Gulf, into a huge property that was pretty unlived. There was no power. It was pretty daunting, I think, for my mum. Incredibly big step to move from all the beautiful comforts of, they renovated their home at Maxwellton and had all of the nice pleasures, and then moving to a place that didn't even have power. We had to light the donkey. Do you know what a donkey is?
No, but tell us.
So to have hot water in the house, there's a big 44-gallon drum out on a stand, and you'd light a fire underneath it, a big pipe coming from it. The water would run from the tank down through this 44-gallon drum and into the house, into the shower. So we had to light the donkey to have hot water to shower. The good thing about it was, the average temperature up there in the Gulf is probably 35 in winter.
Wow.
So you don't often need hot water. But
yeah, you wouldn't need it at all.
It was pretty rough.
Did you have a lot of water? Like, the one thing that I'm embarking on at the moment is the program that I'm doing, Ladies of the Land.
Yeah.
And did you have trouble with water, like, way back then?
It wasn't too bad. We lived in sandy forest country, and up in those areas, we actually probably had more trouble with flooding. Yeah, so we never really had too much of a trouble with drought in that area. But I do remember a couple of times flooding up. We had a house that looked like a shoebox, and I mean when we moved in, the bathtub was full of toads, and it was just like cement floors. It was rough as. But we, I guess we. What was I getting at? So we had this shoebox house. Oh, that's right. The flood rose up so high that we couldn't even use the bottom story of the house. Yeah, I remember my mum actually got flown out by helicopter to go and compete at the national finals in the rodeo, and Dad and I were upstairs in the top level of the house for 10 days.
So your mum got flown out?
Yeah, she got lifted out. It's pretty. I love having that in my history. Like, I was an only child, so there was never any kids around, and I did school of the air until I was 12, and then went away straight to boarding school. It was really intense moving.
So how did you, how was that? Wow, how was that not going to school and mixing with people and that situation at a young age? Because I mean, I just know that my school life was just so exciting and heaps of people around and very social But I mean, if you don't know any better.
Yeah. I guess that's the thing. When you're a country kid, I mean, you don't know any better. And the only kids I was ever really around was if we'd go away to rodeos, and I would, I'd see other kids. And because I didn't have any social skills with other kids, the only people that we were really around for any length of time was my parents. My parents were really busy on the property. Mum was working her guts out like a man all day long, every day. Dad was out all the time. And Mum was also trying to teach me school, or we'd sometimes have a governess come in and teach, school of the air for a few hours a day, and then we'd go out and muster cattle and whatnot. But my social skills were horrendous because we just had workers, from the age of probably 8 or 10, Dad could say, it was 600 square miles, so property you'd have to ride horses across for days to get to the other side. And Dad would say, hey, take Danny, one of our workers, out to the 40-mile paddock and show him, where the fence is down, or show him where that dam is, and see if you can grab some cattle and bring them in. And so
that's a day trip or something,
well, yeah, essentially. So I was always around men, always around adult men who were workers, but never around any other kids. So when I finally was around other kids, I remember my first day at boarding school was horrible. I had no idea, and I thought they were just all idiots. Like I just said, oh my God, you're so childish, and what's wrong with you all, And I was just swearing at them, and everyone was like, oh my God, you're so unfriendly.
Yeah, well, if you haven't got those social skills.
I had none, yeah.
So, let's just get back to that schooling. So from there, so you're 12 at this stage, and you go to boarding school.
Went to boarding school for a little while Mum and Dad were kind of transitioning to sell the property up in the Gulf and then move to Townsville.
Was that a family thing, that property, or was that just something that they just decided to go and do?
From memory, so all Mum and Dad's family both had properties where we first lived, Maxwellton and Richmond. Sheep and cattle, actually we had mostly sheep around Richmond. But then when we moved up into the Gulf, Dad kind of took that on with his brother, and but we lived there and took over the whole kind of arrangement. And I think Mum and Dad just chewed off a lot more than what they thought, we'll be able to handle this. But actually at the time, there was so many potty dodgers. Are you familiar with that term?
So, oh wow, learning so much, like the donkey, potty dodger.
So potty dodgers are, in a really big property like that, or I guess sometimes in a small property, but in big properties like that where it's a lot of fencing to take care of. When we moved there, most of the cattle were clean skinned, so they hadn't been branded recently for years. So you'd have all these cattle roaming around, and that's the way that you claim that you own a cow or a steer or a bull, anything is a brand, right? Or an earmark. And they hadn't been earmarked, they hadn't been branded for years. So it was our job for the first year, I guess, to go and muster all of the cattle on the whole property, 600 square miles. Like Texas is, was it 200 square miles or something?
So yeah,
our property was
3 times the size of Texas.
Yeah, and
everything's big in Texas.
Yeah, and you couldn't drive vehicles most of the way around it. We had to helicopter and horses and all of that. And these cattle had never seen man. They'd never seen horse or man, or they'd seen Brumby. So anytime they'd hear anything, they'd just fly through the scrub, and you'd just flat out almost all the time. But anyway, we brought them in and branded them all. And then so what happens with potty dodgers is you just go into someone else's property and just take whatever you like. So they don't have brands on them. So you just take whatever you like and bring it back into your property and brand it, and they're yours. So there was a couple of times the stock squad, who's like the police for property, cattle and horses and whatnot.
Stock squad,
they were up in that area quite a lot after we'd been there for a few years, and they had sometimes they'd call us, or maybe even the butcher calling us from town and being like, hey, to my dad, hey, we've got one of your cows in here, one of your cattle with the brand on it, and it's been brought in by such and such, and it was so dodgy. It was really it's like the Wild West, but in Australia. So I feel really, at the time I was like, God, I hate my life. It's just so full on. Our neighbours would shoot our dogs if they thought that we were, dobbing them into the stock squad. It was just full on, but I'm so glad that I have that kind of flavour in my life.
How many head of cattle were there?
I have no idea. I'd have to ask my parents, but thousands.
Wow.
Yeah, we used to kill all our own meat, and we would go shopping, go to town once every 6 weeks, because it was about a 6-hour drive by sandy dirt road. We had a town, the closest town was 150 miles away, but Vegemite was $6 a bottle, and there was a pub and a little corner store, and that was about it. Yeah, so we'd have to go down right down another way to Richmond to get food and groceries. Yeah.
Wow, sounds like a beautiful life. Though. I mean, now you think that.
I'm thankful for it now.
Because, well, it moulds you to who you are,
Yeah,
doesn't it? To
yeah.
live through those sort of circumstances.
Yeah.
Because, one, you got to ride horses.
Yeah.
Two, you got to drive trucks and whatever vehicles.
Yeah.
And three, you got to ride motorbikes. And you turned up tonight on a really nice motorbike.
Yeah.
So we'll go back to the horses.
Yeah.
So you were entered into a lot of competitions and things like that, and you did you represent Australia at some stage?
So I mean, I could ride from pretty much birth. Like, you know, Mum would have to work and Dad would have to work on the horses with cattle, so we're just always in the saddle. You know, the minute you could sit up, you were riding a horse.
Wow.
Even just like propped in between your mum and the front of the saddle. You know, like just sitting there just like this all day. So probably from the age of 2, I could probably ride. You know, like somewhat okay. And it was just something we did every day. And so when we moved to Townsville, Mum had always had an English background, an English riding background, so dressage and hacking, and so she rode really beautifully, and she taught me to ride the same. So when we moved to Townsville and Mum and Dad finally moved from the big property up in the Gulf, then we started getting to showing horses, and I started kind of dabbling with showing other people's horses for them and training, and just kind of had, I guess, a little bit of a gift, and won loads and loads doing that, and then went down the first time to the national finals in Western riding, competed there, and it was, I think I won a couple of events at Australian level that first year, which was just daunting for me because I'd only ever competed in the small circle, you know, in your little frog pond. And then the next time I went down, I won quite a few events. I actually got the chance to borrow Jill Farnham's horse, John Farnham's wife. Yeah, so they were really lovely enough to say, you know what, we want to put you on a good horse because you're probably at a level that's a bit higher than the horse that you're riding, and so let's make it happen. So I was really lucky. I won quite a few events, and then was put on the World Cup team. And then after that, not having quite enough time, and I got out of horses for quite a while, but then got back into it after I moved back from overseas, where I lived in Japan for a while, and then when I moved back over here, I got back into the rodeoing. And just as I progressed through that, won several Australian titles in all sorts of events, men's events, women's events.
USA level, didn't you?
Yeah, so when I won the Australian breakaway roping title here on the pro circuit, then I was asked to go over to the States and compete at Tulsa. In Oklahoma, they have world finals there. And I didn't win the world title, but I won the first round of the competition, which was, I think, was over 4 rounds. It was a total shock to me because it was like, oh my god, whoa! I just won like the first round of the world finals. So it was a pretty amazing opportunity.
You also went to uni and did a Bachelor of Language.
Yeah.
So how many languages can you speak? This is just like, where does this come from? What makes you go and do language?
What made me do languages was at school, I was really quite good at maths, and then when I got to about grade 10, because I thought I wanted to do sports science, and I was really good at sport, and at the time was good at science and maths. And then when I got to grade 10, I had a teacher who we just didn't get along, and I started going from an A to a D in maths, and my grades really fell in my science, and my tutor at the time said to me, you find languages so easy, like French was easy, Japanese was easy, I didn't even have to do homework, I just aced all the tests, no problem. You need to go to uni and do something that you're really good at rather than something you want to do. And I was like, oh, okay, because my parents really wanted me to go to uni because they said, like, you need a university education so you don't end up like us on a property and busting your balls all day and all of your life. And so, I went to uni and did Bachelor of Languages, majoring in Japanese. So I studied Japanese mainly, Chinese, French, Spanish. Did I say Chinese? Yeah, I think I did. Yeah, so there was quite a few.
One of those is enough.
But Japanese was my major. The rest were just like smaller, just
Hence why you went to Japan to live.
Hence why I went to Japan to live. I decided I wanted to get out of horses altogether. I didn't want to get my hands dirty anymore, and I wanted to travel the world and be an interpreter, and so I went for a job over here with a big company in Brisbane that takes teachers over to Japan, and I think there was like hundreds of participants. They only took maybe 12. So I got chosen to go over there, and I sort of got my foot in the door that way, and then I started working for an ophthalmology university, because their universities are like an engineering university, and then they have an ophthalmology university, so they're all separate. And so I started working at an ophthalmology university and doing some translating and interpreting. It was really good, but it ended up kind of ending a bit bad for me. I started dating a Japanese guy, and the culture. And that's
bad, is it?
Well, it's not bad. They're beautiful.
You can
beautiful
speak the
people.
language.
Yeah. There was no problem.
That's half the battle. It's a barrier, between mixed relationships.
It is, but the culture's so different, because back then anyway, and I haven't been back, for such a long time, but back then the culture really built up men in the community if they were seeing or dating a European woman, and so he, I guess, obtained a lot of stature in his community of people and his peers. And so when I decided that I didn't really feel the connection anymore, it got really quite scary. Yeah. So the company I was with, I was lucky enough that they literally just said to me overnight, they got the police involved overnight and just shipped me to the other end of the country. And then I stayed there for a month, and I was like, you know what? I don't think I like it here anymore.
So you come from Japan and you've come over here.
Yep.
And then what did you do?
So when I came over here, I was helping my parents set up an equine dentistry college. So my dad had been a farrier, so did horses, put shoes on horses and trimmed horses' feet.
I love the way you describe everything.
So random.
Because it's all new to me. Not country.
So then he looked into doing horse dentistry, and when I was living in the States, when I was 17, as soon as I finished uni, I took a break. As soon as I finished school, I took a break and went to the States for a year and was training horses over there. And my parents were also over there at the time, and Dad was learning equine dentistry, and I was like, oh, what a massive loser, learning equine dentistry. I just didn't think it was a very cool thing to do. And so after I finished in Japan, and I was like, you know what, I've put 8 years of this into my 8 years of my life into this, and I don't want to do the interpreting anymore. I don't want to live in Japan anymore. I'm done with it. I was so lost, and my parents were so wonderful. They said, we're starting up an equine dentistry college here in Australia, and we need someone to help with the bookwork and the photography. And so they started up this college in Australia, and we're bringing people in from all over the world to learn how to do horses' teeth, but at a higher level than what, say, a vet would learn, because usually it's like a doctor, doctors learn about dentistry.
Yeah.
Right, so we were specialists in dentistry. So I started doing that, and over the next few years, I got so deeply into it. It became such a passion of mine, and I had a business here in Australia, I had a business in New Zealand, and then I taught at the college here and also the college in Idaho. Lived in and out of the States for 10 years probably, on and off, worked over there, ran businesses here. I loved it. But then when I had my kids, it just became way too hard to have little babies feeding off your breasts and then going off and trying to do horses' teeth. Yeah.
Wow. Wow. Oh, wow.
Yeah.
So how did all that lead to this? I'm almost afraid to ask you.
What else is under the bonnet? Yeah.
I just don't know.
Yeah.
And tonight what we're going to do is we're going to be giving these away. We want you to write up some comments.
Yeah.
So we'll go through the comments after the show, and we'll let you know who's won. So, all right, so let's just talk about the transition from children, horses' teeth,
I know,
to unbeep yourself.
Unbeep yourself. Am I swearing very much? Because normally I just speak quite freely.
It's all right. You're a country girl. You're excused.
It's excusable.
Yeah.
Okay, cool.
Yeah.
I went So I kind of got to another transitional space in my life where I'd, I guess, reached the goals I wanted to reach. I'd won several Australian titles in the roping, and I'd been to the world, and I kind of got to a place where I think I started to suffer a little bit of depression, and it was something that, like, my mum kind of was like, I kind of expected this. My grandma had bipolar, and she's like, I kind of expected this, and it's time to go off to the doctor and get some pills and get on some antidepressants. And I was like, I was quite resistant to that, but I did do it because I just.
How old were you then?
I would have been after I had my son, so it would have been maybe the age of 23 or something, like. No, would that be right? No, not 23, 27, 28, because he's 10 now. Yeah, so that'd be about right, 28. And I remember, like, we had a beautiful property at Narrabri, my husband and I, and we, had this beautiful child, and I, just had so much success in every part of my life. But I just remember sitting there one day on the back of the ute and just bawling my eyes out. It was just like, I fucking hate my life. I just. And I have no reason
after
to.
all that.
Yeah, and I have no reason to.
Which is what people would say to you. They'd say, like,
What?
Yeah, they look at you and they go,
Yeah.
how could you not love your life?
Yeah.
Like, look what you've done.
Yeah.
And it is hard, isn't it? Because you know in yourself what's happening, and you feel like, like I'm usually full of gratitude, but right now what's happening to me? It's the unexplainable.
I think for me, I don't know whether I was ever that full of gratitude. I think I was an only child, and I was probably a little bit self-entitled, and I just believed that I kind of deserved, I put in the hard work, I deserve this. And I think that was probably where I was coming from, and it wasn't until I started to suffer mentally and really notice it, and it was almost like, for me, if I wasn't competing and winning, if I wasn't in everybody's eyesight, if I wasn't the life of the party, I just wasn't happy, and it was like, God, what's wrong with me? I can't be happy unless I'm, like, especially having a child for me took away my ability to go and be like living and working on the road all the time, and all of a sudden the limelight moved off me, and I was like, I was just like, I was lost. I had no identity anymore, and so many women can probably relate to that, because you have a child, and if you're a working woman, then it's just like, who am I anymore? So I think that was part of it. So what happened was, I reached out to a girlfriend of mine who was right into raw food, and I started asking her some questions, because I've been vegetarian since I was 17, funnily enough, which goes against all of the cattle grazing stuff, but she said to me, yeah, it's amazing for fighting off depression, because your gut is your first brain, essentially. So I started looking into raw food and naturopathic nutrition, and then I just basically went raw vegan, and then went off the pills and stopped drinking alcohol, and just really started looking after myself. And I guess that was a really big turning point, because I was like, wow, like, now I kind of believe that everybody who's suffering depression should be doing this. I was still quite like, thinking I had my way or the highway, I guess. And that's when so I'm a raw food and naturopathic nutritionist now, because I just feel so strongly about helping, women especially with finding health. And I just, for myself and my family, it's just so important. And then I started getting into yoga. One of the nannies that we had working for us, because we always had properties and we were always quite busy, so I'd usually have a nanny living with us to help with the kids, so I didn't lose my mind. And one of the nannies that stayed with us, she started being like, you should come to yoga, and so I started going, and just loved it, and it made me feel like I had a bit of funnily enough, yoga is supposed to get you away from your identity, but it made me feel like I was connecting to people again. Wow, these people are beautiful, and they see me, and I can speak about things that other people don't feel comfortable to speak about. So I went away and did my teacher training in yoga, and it was then that I realized that I have to choose something. I have to choose something to let go of. And for me, I'd reached all of the things I wanted to do in the horse riding. And I decided to let that go while I kind of pursued more yoga stuff, more sensuality and sexuality work, and spend more time with my kids. And it was a huge, I guess, I don't know if it's identity change. I'm still the same person I always have been.
Shift.
It was a big shift because everyone in my life basically been the same as I had forever, and been around horses forever, rodeoed forever. You know, they're just like, we're all, you know, in that same sort of culture. And all of a sudden I felt quite ostracized, because it's like, oh, what's wrong with you? You're not like, and maybe they didn't do that. It might have just been my own take on it, but I felt that like, I felt like I didn't fit in anymore. And my marriage started to kind of pull apart. And so I just really delved into self-development and learning more about who I am and why I was going through all the things I was going through, and why I had, you know, this desire to be seen all the time, and all this sort of stuff that was really holding me back. Why my ego was so big, and I had to feed it all the time to feel like I could function. And so all of that basically led me to this. There's I guess there's a lot
Even the
of
photo, you
details.
look really free. You know, like that photo is incredible.
It was a pretty special day. It was a pretty beautiful day.
So from
feeling fucked to fully free in 4 weeks.
so you can do it in 4 weeks.
Well, in fact, I don't know. I think that might have been a little bit of a marketing push
And
from the publisher.
I've opened up at this page because I thought I'll just have a look. I'll just randomly open a page, and the title is Ground Rules for Success with Men.
Ooh, I love that.
There you go. That's just one of the little things that are in there. Oh, there's many, many more. So, you know, at least comment, and we'll have a look and see who's going to win the lovely book. So you were saying what led you to that?
Yeah, I guess I started helping.
You've done everything else. You might as well write a book.
Might as well write a book. Yeah, but a lot of people were saying to me, like, you should start, you know, sharing, because I guess I was through the yoga teachers. I was yoga classes I was teaching, and I do body work as well. I do a lot of massage and needling and cupping, and then I started getting into doing tantra work. I don't know if you're familiar with what tantra is. And so all of the coaching and everything, all of the stuff I was kind of offering to people were like, Jesus, you should write a book. Like, it's amazing the things that you know. And, you know, you always think, nah, like, I don't know much, you know. And I even struggle with that a little bit now. Like, I was recently offered a really amazing opportunity to work with a PR company and go really quite mainstream and big. And we planned for a few months, and I kind of pulled away. It scared me to have to answer to somebody else, and to kind of change a little bit of my identity, and it just didn't feel like a fit at the end. But I guess getting back to the book, it was just kind of a natural progression of like, I want to reach people and I want to help people, and like that's my thing today. Like some of my programs on my website are a donation basis. Like I literally want to be of service to men, to women. It doesn't mean I don't see my worth and I don't charge for what I do, but there's some things that, you know, that I do say, like, just pay what you like for that, or it really lights me up to teach a yoga class, you know, packed full of people that might come up and be like, hey, you don't know this about me, but I've been coming to your classes for a year and I finally decided to quit my shitty job and I'm the happiest I've ever been, and it's all because of you. And it's like, oh my God, that's amazing.
That's a good feeling, isn't
and
it?
And it is. It's a really good feeling. Tilly, Matilda Quist, that you've had on here as well. So Tilly's a life coach, and so we're great friends through the bikes, and she originally came to see me, but now I see her for life coaching, and I really became clear. It became clear a little while ago for me in one of our sessions that contribution is what drives me, and it feels so good to say that, because I used to be so about myself. You know, and it's like, God, it feels so good to give back to people and to help people, and especially women. I do help men. Like, I love helping men, especially around their stepping into their power as a man. and I can do that through the tantra and through yoga and that sort of thing. But for women, like it just lights me up.
So every week when I finish the show off, I usually ask my participant to give a message of hope to someone out there that's watching the show, and you know, just something to inspire women to do what they want to do, basically, or you know, a message of hope in some way. So if you want to look down the camera and just for a little second, give a nice little message of hope. What would you say to someone that's sitting at home right now? They've been watching this show and they're trying to work out their life too. What would that one message be to them?
Yeah, okay. I think what's coming to me right now is to share that not to listen to the stories that you have in your head, because those stories are just coming from little negative beliefs that have been set up in your childhood. And rather than listening to those stories of I'm not good enough and I'm not lovable and I'm not worthy or they won't like me, to try and retrain yourself, to work with somebody who can guide you, to surround yourself with positive people and people who accept you as you are and love you as you are, and be super authentic, because when you start to show up as yourself, all of the people who aren't really you, as wonderful as they might be, they start to drop away, and all the people who are more in alignment with you will start to come into your life.
Well said, for someone that didn't know they had to do that. But you are good with a spoken word, I must say.
Thank you.
So, so just, you know, write a little comment, even if it's just your name, just a comment, and we'll draw tonight who's going to actually win these. So each and every week I say thank you to my beautiful viewers, everyone out there watching my show, and I'm living my dream, and it's because of you that I am living my dream. So thank you so much, and know that, you know, in life, you know, just get up and be happy and try and find the silver lining in life, and know you're going to be okay. So thanks for listening, and it's good night from us.
Yeah,
good night.
Thank you.